So I've been looking to see what, if any, connection there was between Russia and Israel, or Russia and Palestine. And it looks like there is some. Now, not only does Russia have an interest in seeing the world take its eyes off Ukraine and be diverted into that, but here's another interesting thing. So this was in Interfax Ukraine this morning. Russian intelligence services handed over Western weapons seized in Ukraine to Hamas militants. That would mean that Russia's involved with Hamas in attacking Israel, if only by just giving them some weapons. That's the background. Quote, the Russian intelligence service has already transferred to Hamas terrorists captured weapons made in the United States and EU countries captured during the fighting in Ukraine. The next step, according to the Russians' plan, should be fake accusations, let's look for this, fake accusations of the Ukrainian military selling Western weapons to terrorists on a regular basis. Now, I've already heard about those kind of things before this, to Western terrorists or mobsters or whatever all over the world, because of course Ukraine is corrupt, and so because they're corrupt they must be just selling things hand over fist. That's been from day two. Literally day 2 or 3, I saw something about how, we don't know where these weapons are going to go. Okay, so let's look at some of these articles. Here's the Kyiv Independent. Military intelligence says Russia gives Hamas weapons captured in Ukraine to discredit. Russia has transferred Western-made weapons captured in Ukraine to the extremist organization Hamas, fighting against Israel in an effort to discredit Kyiv, Ukraine's military intelligence reported on October 9th. Moscow plans to falsely accuse the Ukrainian military of selling these weapons. Quote, as a part of Kremlin's disinformation campaign, these fakes should form the basis of a number of revealing articles and investigations in the Western media. Another provocation by the enemy aims to discredit the armed forces of Ukraine and make Western partners cease military aid to our country. So that's the goal. Hey, look, we're showing that what happened to Israel, that's because the Ukrainians sold this off, and see, now that's what happened. Maybe not so fast. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the Kremlin aims to exploit Hamas's offensive against Israel to divert Western support and attention away from Ukraine. Now, how did they do this? Well, here's Newsweek. Today, Russia seeks to frame Ukraine with trophy Western weapons in Gaza. So there's this move that to say, hey, look, this is what actually happened, and Russia's going to make hay about it. Are they? They sure are. Hamas using weapons. This is an RT today. Hamas using weapons given to Ukraine, says ex-Russian president. That's Medvedev. The weapons in Kyiv's Western backers have actively supplied to Ukraine have found their way to Hamas militants and are now, quote, being actively used in Israel, unquote, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said in Telegram. An unverified video circulating online showed a Palestinian militant displaying an assorted U.S.-made pieces, including standard issue M136 anti-tank grenade launcher, while thanking Ukrainians for the weapons. According to Medvedev, oh, by the way, here's the video. This is the video showing these weapons, and Hamas people are in the background saying, thank you to Ukraine for supplying these weapons. Okay, so, but did that really happen? According to Medvedev, corrupt authorities in Ukraine would not hesitate to trade everything they had and receive from their backers. Quote, they would steal everything in sight, unquote, the former president claimed. But is it true? The aforementioned video was already sparked controversy in the U.S. with Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, right, saying on Sunday that the origins must be investigated, right? She's no friend of Ukraine. She wants to stop the supply of weapons to Ukraine, and this is her being a useful idiot on behalf of Russia in order to do that. So here is First Post. Did weapons Hamas use? Now, First Post is an Indian publication, but here it's covering the same stuff. Did the weapons Hamas used against Israel come from Ukraine or Afghanistan? Asks a U.S. Congresswoman. And here's the actual tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, it would make sense if they came from Afghanistan, right? Like, we left a lot of weapons behind in Afghanistan, and in the hands of Taliban, who could very easily funnel stuff over to Hamas. Maybe that wasn't a good look, and it could have been that connection. But then she connects it to Ukraine. We need to work with Israel to track the serial numbers on any U.S. weapons used by Hamas against Israel. Did they come from Afghanistan? Did they come from Ukraine? Highly likely the answer is both. She doesn't know. She's asking a question, and you're right, it's okay to ask a question, but Is this really because she thinks that that's a problem or because she has an agenda? By the way, she's talking about Afghanistan. We're not even paying attention to what's actually happening in Afghanistan. Like, here is the day's news. 5 things to know for October 9th. Here's the day's news. Did you know that there was an earthquake that killed more than 2,000 people in Afghanistan over the weekend? Did you even know that? Like, this is important. People died and we're not even paying attention because we're paying attention to the man-made disaster that is what's going on in Israel right now, as well as what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, so here, to join the chorus, here comes Scott Ritter. Oh boy, are Hamas fighters using American weapons meant for Ukraine? And of course, what do you think his answer is going to be? These are weapons paid for by the U.S. taxpayer and ostensibly provided to forces joined in the cause of defeating terrorists and or freedom fighters, but that in the end end up in the hands of the latter instead. Obviously, that is never the outcome Washington intends, and yet somehow these weapons end up arming the very forces the U.S. and its allies are trying to defeat. Well, of course, he has an axe to grind. He's always pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine, and so he's piling in with the chorus. And then he's citing Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, where she's citing what she from Twitter, right? He's citing Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia's 14th district, who, in the immediate aftermath of the Hamas attack, tweeted, "We need to work with Israel to track serial numbers." Sound familiar? Did they come from Ukraine? Highly likely. The answer is both. Any attempt to answer, now this is Ritter again, any attempt to answer Marjorie Taylor Greene's questions will more than likely turn up information that should make the U.S. government very uncomfortable. Well, what's he trying to say? He's trying to say that, see, this is what happened. We told you for a long time, don't give these weapons to Ukraine. If you do give these weapons to Ukraine, what's going to happen to them? Well, they're going to wind up elsewhere in bad actors' hands. And see what happened to Israel as a consequence of what you just did. That's what he's telling us. Okay. Last little bit, the Kremlin believes that arms supplied to Ukraine will decrease due to Hamas attack on Israel. So they're saying it for 2 reasons. One, and this is Peskov, who spends most of his time lying about things that we know are true, but he lies about anyway. Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for the Russian president, said that the supply of Western weapons to Ukraine would inevitably decrease due to the Hamas attack on Israel. Now, there's 2 reasons that these arms supplies, in his perspective, will decrease. For the first reason is that now you're diffused. You're thinking about 2 different fights at the same time. You're not just focusing on what's going on in Ukraine. You're thinking about what's going on in Israel. That's naturally taking it off. But if they can make this case stick, what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying here, did the weapons Hamas used against Israel come from Ukraine? That's going to be, making it even less likely that the U.S. will supply Ukraine, which is exactly what the Russians want. They want nothing more than that. This would be like a birthday gift to the Russians. Okay. Last little bit, again, full circle, Russia gives Hamas weapons captured in Ukraine to discredit Kyiv, and this was in the Kyiv Independent, and it's more of the same thing, but here, Russia has transferred Western-made weapons captured to Ukraine, extremist organization Hamas. If that is true, Russia is linked to what just happened in Israel, and we need to stay on top of this. Now, I don't know that that's true. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying Russia's making this case for propaganda value, but if Russia actually was involved in that, they have blood on their hands as well. Okay, that's my case here of what is the connection between Russia and Israel. The primary connection right here. There's another connection. They're going to be looking at making the argument for the 2-state solution in order to keep the West off balance and in order to kind of drive a wedge between those that support Israel and those that support Palestine within a unified bloc in Europe who's been unified behind Ukraine. So that's what's going to happen, and probably my next video I'm going to talk about that because that's a big story as well. Okay, tell me what you think. Put it in the comments below. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the coffees, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.